Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, September 5th. I want to go over the Russian military losses over the last 24 hours. Then we're going to talk about the repeated uh, strikes targeting near misses, blatant disregard for NATO sovereignty, Article 5, and then cover off a couple other little tidbits of information to start you on your day. So, first off, the military losses. Russia suffered another 560 men that are no longer going to be taking part in the special military operation. 9 tanks, which is above average and a pretty strong number. 7 APVs, 38 artillery pieces. And obviously we don't see all of the videos. I have seen some recent videos of some of the artillery pieces taken out. That's just unsustainable. I just cannot wrap my head around losing 38 artillery pieces in a war, let alone a single day. 6 MLRS, which is way above average. They're not as common, and they're more valuable typically, and they are a great takeout because of the fact that, I mean, one, they're so indiscriminate. When the Russians fire their Grad 21s, or they basically just blanket a 1 mile by 1 mile square tract of land and will randomly hit anything in there. So you don't want the Russians to be more accurate, but at the same time taking out something that they just blatantly use to target hectares, acres, whatever, is a good thing. And if it's a toss flamethrower as well with the thermobaric bombs, those things are terrifying and deadly. And so, anyways, it's a great takeout. I apologize for that. My alarm. 31 UAVs, and Russia has now lost over $82 billion in U.S. military assets in its failed 3-day special military operation. And of course, those are just my estimates. One thing that I do think is inaccurate as well is the planes that's still been sitting at 315. I don't think that the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, and others are accurately tracking the non, you want to call it combat related. It's kind of combat, but anyways, some of the planes that have been destroyed or damaged on the runways in various Russian airports. I believe that this number is shy by at least 5, but what's for me to disagree, right? So moving on, so a lot of you guys probably heard recently that there was a claim by Ukraine that Russian Shahid drone, or drones, but at least one drone that was targeting the grain infrastructure in Odessa and on the Danube River ended up striking Romanian territory again. And I kind of wanted to walk through a little bit of a history, and this is just a slice of life. This is not a comprehensive look because it's so many things have happened, but I wanted to take a bit of a look at what Russia has done to snub its nose at NATO, and you can basically decide if I'm right, if it is happening, if it's getting worse, if NATO's a non-event to Russia, as far as how it goes about its war with Ukraine, and potentially if there's any risk in the future, if NATO's not doing anything to respond to transgressions, aggression, and Russia keeps pushing the boundaries. Eventually, could something happen that it's basically crossing the Rubicon? It's the point of no return. So, anyways, not to jump too far ahead, but so if a lot of you will remember back in November of 2022. Sorry, September. September 29th of 2022. It turns out that a Russian Su-27 flying over the Black Sea targeted a British RAF RC-135 Rivet joint surveillance aircraft. So there's the Rivet. So basically, what this was doing was, it's under the NATO umbrella. It's a British jet. It loiters over the Black Sea for a long period of time, flying over international waters, international airspace, and would basically just surveil what's going on in the Black Sea. It could be planes, missile launches, boats, activity, etc. It turns out that a Russian Su-27 was given permission to fire on the Rivet. Not only was it given permission to fire on the Rivet, it did. And the story from NATO is that basically the Russian missiles or missile was a dud, misfired, fired accidentally, etc. There's been numerous stories out there. One is that they accidentally released their missiles. It's impossible to accidentally release your missiles from an Su-27. You have to go through like 4 different steps, and including getting permission from the ground to fire. The chances of the missiles being a dud, if it wasn't Russia, I would say the chances are slim and none. If it's Russia, excuse me, I would say, who knows, 30% dud, 70% accurate. There's also a chance that they did fire, the missile was not a dud, and that the Rivet had some countermeasures. We don't know. We absolutely don't know. But 100% for sure, the Russians targeted a UN surveillance aircraft over international waters and international airspace, contacted base, wherever that was, asked permission, got permission to fire on the target, fired on the target, and thank goodness the missiles didn't strike the Rivet. Whatever happened to those missiles, whether they were duds, I keep saying missiles, it could be one missile, but whether the missile or missiles were duds, or whether they were somehow, some way stopped due to countermeasures, we won't know. But it happened, and we didn't find out about it until weeks later. What potentially could have started, arguably, World War III between NATO and Russia, an incident that 100% happened, that was going to come out no matter what, and it took weeks to find out that it actually happened. So it's not like NATO is completely forthcoming. It's not like Russia, obviously, is completely forthcoming. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt, whether it is actually something that's being told to us or something that potentially is not being told to us, and it's a cone of silence. So that was kind of like a major incident number 1 that happened, and we found out about it after the fact. Number 2, you will recall that there was a large missile barrage, drone barrage, that was sent from Russian planes, boats, submarines, land into Ukraine on, I believe it was November 14th of last year. This report's from the 15th. I think this happened on the 14th. Anyways. So originally what happened, what was stated by Poland, what was stated by Ukraine, sources on the ground, etc., was that one of the Russian missiles went off course and struck a Polish farm and killed 2 Polish farmers. And that was the story for a good 24 plus hours. And here's where you can put your tinfoil hat on or not. NATO, in my mind, does not want to invoke Article 5, does not want any of its members to invoke Article 5, which is basically an attack on one is an attack on all. Everyone is bound by the agreements of NATO to come to the defense of that country, just like happened in 9/11. The U.S. invoked Article 5, they're under attack, and everybody basically stepped up and came to the U.S.'s defense, especially because of the fact that there was so many foreign citizens from Canada, the UK, and other countries that were lost, especially in the Twin Towers in New York. Anyways, it's a bit of a sidebar. So this was the story for, I don't know, 24 to 36 hours, was that a Russian-made missile fell on its soil and killed 2 farmers. Then all of a sudden, an investigation was going to happen. Then all of a sudden, people started to pull back on the NATO side of things and said, let's wait and see what happened. And then the U.S. stepped up and said, started to make noise that it was actually a Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile that was targeting a Russian missile, and the Ukrainian missile went off course and landed in a Polish farm. Basically, you could say throwing the Ukrainians under the bus and blaming them for killing 2 citizens of their number 1 ally and partner. And Zelensky, based on the comments that he made in his speeches to the press, etc., was absolutely livid and swore up and down that they had radar and missile defense radar proof that they did not fire a missile that went off course and struck Poland. And you know what I should have done? Missile crater in Poland. I should have done this beforehand. I wanted to show you guys. There it is. Well, let me see. There's a good one. That's not the best one. There's a better one. There was another one that kind of showed really good. This is not bad. Anyways, we'll use this one. If it loads, where did it go? Now here, it says this is where the story has changed a day later, right? And it says November 16th. Now, all of a sudden, 24 hours later, it says, oh, it was a Ukrainian stray. The problem with that one is that they also had missile fragments that looked exactly like the fragments off of a Russian cruise missile. I'm not going to delve too deep. Number 2 is typically anti-aircraft, anti-missile missiles. I said missiles twice. Are low, what you would call low impact, high fragmentation. They are not meant to, unless they've been, unless there were some of the large old ones like the S-200s that both the Russians and Ukrainians have now turned into ground-to-ground. The S-300s, the S-400s, the Patriots, that sort of thing, they are missiles that are meant to basically explode in proximity. Well, they can have a kinetic kill as well, but a lot of missiles, their primary function is to have a proximity kill. So they'll blow up with, they're not good enough to hit missile on missile, so they'll blow up when they get close to it, and they'll shoot a bunch of fragments into the air. A lot of experts online basically said the impact crater that was left on the Polish farm was larger than any potential impact crater they would have seen from an anti-aircraft missile that was supposed to be a stray from Ukraine. So it goes from Ukraine and Poland on November 15th, basically saying the Russians did it, to November 16th, Poland saying it was Ukrainian stray, and then the U.S. chimed in and said, let's investigate, but all indications say it was Ukraine. So again, NATO pulling back, a NATO country being potentially struck. And even if it was Ukrainian stray, which I don't believe it was, but even if it was Ukrainian stray, it happened because of the fact that a Russian cruise missile was fired along its border at the Ukrainian city of Lviv. And it's a pretty bad miss for Ukraine to fire at a missile that was targeting Lviv and miss it, and then travel all the way across the Ukrainian border, or the Ukrainian-Polish border, and landing in a farm. So again, take that with a grain of salt. But somebody's not. Either Ukraine was lying when they said they had irrefutable radar signatures showing that it was not their missile, and it was Poland's, or Poland and the U.S. and NATO are potentially putting a white lie out there to avoid having to invoke Article 5 because 2 Polish citizens were killed. Does it seem likely that Ukraine would have lied and said, we have the evidence and we're happy to provide it to you? Or does it seem more likely that the NATO, Poland, the U.S. would like to avoid World War III or having to get physically involved in the war? You decide. Next up, on July 26th, while Russia was attacking Ukrainian ports in Odessa, Ismail, etc., one of their crew, Shahed drones again, I believe this was a Shahed again, struck a Romanian ship. The Romanian ship, no one died. There were 6 injuries, but no one died. Romania is part of NATO. This was almost a non-event. Again, Russia basically targeted the areas directly on the border of a NATO country, struck the assets, struck a ship of a NATO country, and nothing happened. There was a few comments by government officials and how they, tisk, tisk, tisk sort of thing, and that was it. There've also been many reports from Moldova, from Romanian citizens, I believe Polish citizens, if I'm not incorrect, basically saying that they are aware of Russian cruise missiles, Russian drones, etc., overflying their airspace. Take that with a grain of salt as well. Question it all, but so the latest one, Ukraine claims the Russian drone crashed on Romanian territory. There is a picture of reportedly from a Ukrainian citizen on their side of the Danube River, looking across the Danube River at Romania with an explosion on Romanian territory. And a lot of people said that Romania denied that the drone hit, I forget, but a lot of people were saying Romania says that no drone hit our territory. That's not what the Romanian government said. What the Romanian government said was, seems kind of like NATO doublespeak in a way, if you think about it, is The Ministry of National Defense categorically denies the information in the public space regarding a so-called situation that occurred during the night of September 3rd to 4th, in which Russian drones allegedly fell on the national territory of Romania. At no time did the means of attack used by the Russian Federation generate direct military threats to Romania's national territory or territorial waters. So that last statement especially is basically saying at no time were we intentionally under direct attack by Russia's military. That does not deny that the Russian drone hit their territory. That just basically states that they don't feel that they were under attack. You can say that they're implying that it was an accident, but they did not feel militarily threatened by Russia. So let's, I don't know, err on the side of Ukraine and basically say that they're right. They have a picture, what they claim is evidence. They don't want to cause a huge issue with Romania, who is basically an ally, and especially in the grain deal, the lack of a grain deal, but the efforts to get grain out through Romania's territorial waters. So again, Russia knows this, NATO knows this, Ukraine knows this, that Ukraine can't be the squeaky wheel forever on the Poland incident, on this incident. So they state what they saw, they state what the evidence that they have. They're basically told it's a non-event. This is not going to invoke Article 5 again. You move on. So in my mind, again, 100% a British plane was targeted. I believe, call it 75 to 80% certainty that a Russian missile directly impacted Poland and killed 2 of its citizens. 100% a Romanian ship was hit on the Danube River, and 95% the Russians basically, a Russian Shahed drone landed in Romania. You decide whether or not NATO's Article 5 is being basically snubbed, laughed at, if it'll ever be used, or if it is a paper tiger. In this video, complete change of topic, you're going to see for the first time that the Ukrainians lost a Challenger 2 tank. As we've always said, they're not made of adamantium. Ukrainians are going to lose Challenger 2 tanks. It's sad. I love the tank. It's the first time a Challenger 2 tank has been lost in combat that was not due to friendly fire. That's the Challenger 2 right there. And then I believe we're going to see, is it a Leopard? What we see on the right? I'm not sure which one. I think that was a Leopard 2A4 with contact point armor. Oh, look at this car's windshield, by the way. Either bullets or shrapnel pockmarks. A couple other little tidbits of information. Russia is trying to recruit Cubans into the war. The Cuban Interior Ministry is investigating it, looking to neutralize the criminal gangs that are trying to recruit their citizens to come fight in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's burning time again in Moscow. This is a large fire that broke out at the Leningradsky railway station in Moscow. Things just keep on burning in Moscow and Russia all over Russia. These are one-off events that would make major news story in each country, and in Russia it's just a day ending in Y. And last, to follow up on another story that I posted, that a lot of people have posted before, we originally got this photograph of one of these Russian bombers, basically where they covered the entire thing in car tires, and now they've gone ahead and done it to multiple other planes. But it's not the full wing. It's basically where the drones struck those planes. The Russians figure, okay, we're going to cover that single area in tires. And if you can see these pictures, I'll link this in the video. But you can see these are basically Goodyear tires all over these planes to stop the drones from hurting them. Someone needs to tell Russia that rubber tires burn quite a bit. In fact, if one of these tires catches on fire, you're not going to be able to get them off in time before they basically decimate your plane. And if these are your strategic nuclear bombers, and they're supposed to be able to take off at a moment's notice, well, have you added in the time frame needed to basically get someone out to clean off the tires? I can't even. This is the second greatest military in the world. Anyways, that's it for today. Hope you found this informative, interesting, thought-provoking. Please like, subscribe, share, add comments. Let me know what you want to see, when you want to see it. That's it. Have a great day, everybody. Love you all. Slava Ukraini.